Alrighty, hi everyone. Welcome to our ATA Notes HSC Revision Lecture Series, and today we will be looking at HSC PDHPE. I hope you guys are all doing really well and enjoying these last couple of weeks of your HSC journey, or as much as you can enjoy about them. I'm sure it's a bit limited in what you can enjoy, but I hope you guys are, looking for the positive in all of this. And it'll be over soon, so I'm sure you have lots of plans for after the HSC, so it's going to be really exciting. So welcome. Let's smash it out today. We do have a bit to get through, but today's lecture is quite interesting in the way that it's structured and the fact that we're going to have a very strong focus today on um, practice questions and doing revision more than actually going through the content. So that's what we're doing today. Welcome, and let's get started. So like I said, to welcome to our lecture series from all of us here at ATA Notes. A very, very warm welcome. So just a quick bit about ATA Notes. As you may know, we have been offering heaps of free resources to help students out to make sure that they can thrive in their studies. And we've been around since 2007, and we've offered free lectures like this since 2015. And recently they've obviously shifted to being online because of after COVID and during COVID. But these lectures have been going on for a while, and you are always able to access like past recordings as well. So we just want to, yeah, we're here to help you guys get the most out of your HSC journey and to achieve your goals and your yeah, all your goals and your dreams, all the stuff that you want to take away from this HSC. That's what we're here for. So welcome. Now, before we begin, we do offer lots of free resources that you can access on our website. So we've got hundreds of downloadable study notes. So our website is a great place for students to collaborate and put up their study notes. So you can find lots of downloadable study resources that you can use. Apologies, I'm just recovering from a bit of a cough, so please excuse my insistent coughing. Um, but as I was saying, we've got lots of study notes that you can access from our website. They are free, and they are pretty good in the sense that you can use them to consolidate your own notes because they're posted by other students. We also have our lectures happening. So we have our lectures this week. So make sure that you attend those. HSC revision lectures are happening for all the subjects that we offer. So please make sure you attend them. And we also have Head Start lectures actually. So if you want to and Head Start lectures are for the class of 2024, and they focus on the content of, next term. So if you want to maybe like revise a bit of the earlier content, feel free to attend those lectures. The one for PDHPE focuses on Core 1. So if you want a revision of Core 1, feel free to check that out as well. We also have discussion forums, online Q&As. It's a great place for people to communicate. We also have engaging online revision videos, newsletters, ADA calculator that I'm sure you will be sort of searching for for these next couple of weeks, and also articles. So lots of studies, tips and strategies, ranging across a range of subjects. So definitely check it out. It's all on our website. So welcome guys. Let's get started with today's revision lecture. So here we are going to essentially go through a lot today. So I kind of want us to really focus on essentially, asking lots of questions, having a go at these questions. I'm kind of going to guide you through it, and the key is for me to sort of make sure that you guys feel comfortable answering a range of questions today. So Let's get started. So we start off by looking at the who, what, where, and how of questions. And then we are going to do writing workshops. So that basically means that I'll be walking you through questions. So this is the lecture where you take out your pens and your papers and you start writing. Like I said, I'm going to be talking through the content as we go through the questions, but this is essentially this is essentially, a huge, like, it has a huge workshop aspect. So I do want you to be writing stuff as we go, to be actually formulating your answers. And now I will be live answering questions in the chat. So ask questions, ask lots of relevant questions, and make sure that you are having a go at these questions as well. Really, really important to have a go at these questions. The lecture is recorded, so because it's recorded, you'll be able to view it after the session, the live stream, I guess, of the of this lecture is over. You will be able to access it. You'll have access to the slides that I'm going through as well, that you'll find just below where this video is playing. So in my YouTuber way, like just below the channel here, guys. So subscribe my channel. No, it should be like literally right there. If they're not there for some reason, let me know, but they should be there. So that's writing workshop. Then we won't in terms of break, I guess, because it's a live chat, you will be asking questions as we go through the content, but we'll definitely be breaking things down, and we'll be, it's a very chill lecture in that sense. It's not some content heavy lecture where I'm throwing 80 slides, 100 slides worth of content at you. This is a sort of a flip over of that, and instead we're going through questions together. We're breaking down questions and really honing in on exam strategies. And finally, practice questions. So we will be doing practice questions, and we'll be using hacks to best prepare for the HSC. So we'll be writing, so we'll go through practice responses and so on. So lots to get through today. Let's get started. Okay, so let us start off with the who, what, when, where, why of these questions. Like I said, I will be live. I will be answering all your questions. So please ask all the questions that you have. But some housekeeping is just that, be respectful of yourself, of others. So ask, ask like, respectful questions, appropriate questions. No question is a silly question at all, right? So if something doesn't make sense, you feel like you should know it but you don't quite know it, that is totally okay. Just ask again. It's good to ask. It's always good to ask. And now if I miss a question by any chance, just let me know. Alrighty, that can happen because I'm, like, going through them, and sometimes it usually happens at the beginning of the lecture more than the middle or the end, is that, the questions are start coming through, and as I answer the first question, second one comes through, then third, then fourth, and then I pick up the third and fourth, but I forget the second one in the middle. So ask again if I miss your question. Okay, so let us get started. Now, before we do that, I have not introduced myself yet. So, my name is Aditi, and today I will be taking you through this lecture. So I graduated in 2021 as docs, which is what, it's been 2 years now. Goodness gracious, does not feel like 2 years. That'd be you in 2 years' time. Honestly, once you're done with it, you'll be like, oh, that does not feel like 2 years. So it's been 2 years, wow. And so the subjects I tutor include English Extension, Advanced, Biology, and PDHPE. The subjects I did also included chemistry and maths 3 unit, but we don't we don't talk about chemistry or maths 3 unit in here. That's what I like to say. I mean, we can talk about maths advanced. That one's still okay. That one better than I expected, but definitely not extension. Yeah, so I'm currently at the University of Sydney, so I'm majoring in medical science and political economy, and I'm doing a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Advanced Studies in Medical Science as a Del Scholar. So if you have any questions about uni, about University of Sydney specifically, my experiences maybe, please feel free to ask. any questions about maybe any of the UAC process or something, feel free to ask. I'll try to help out the best I can, share any tips. Yeah, so there on the right is my little picture, oops, my little picture of classics. So that's my little collection of classics so far. Well, actually, no, not all of them are that. Well, yeah, Tales of Two City is. So is this Jane Austen novel. The rest of them not quite, but this is my little collection of classics. And huge Harry Potter fan. That's why the books are there. Okay, so like I said, today we will be spending time going over tips and tricks when it comes to answering the question specifically. We'll also be looking at how can you use the syllabus effectively, and ultimately how do you write a solid response. We, like I said, won't be going through any specific content areas through, through either health priorities in Australia and focus and factors affecting performance, and that's because we are going to do practice questions that focus on a range of dot points. Now, obviously, feel free to ask questions, content-based questions as we go through the lecture today. That is absolutely okay. But the reason that we are kind of focusing on essentially doing like practice questions and writing workshops is because of the fact that I reckon it's the best way to prepare for the HSC now. Because once you've got the content down, there's no point in just like, retaking your notes, like just like rewriting your notes over and over again, or just memorizing your notes. Now is the time to actually apply that to practice questions. One thing I'll mention is in terms of like remembering the syllabus, that is key. So I might just write this down here. um like I really do think it's super super important. Understanding the syllabus is so important, and I do think it's to some extent it has been not sidelined, but it's not as big as it should be. But that is the my key tip here, and I do not have a pencil, so I'm just using my curse pad to write this. So when it comes to memorizing the syllabus, and if that is something that you're struggling with right now, if you're just trying to like get all the content in and you're struggling with that, I would recommend honestly understanding the syllabus, right? Memorize the syllabus. And how do you memorize the syllabus? The way I like to do it was by making mind maps. I reckon that is honestly one of the best ways to memorize the syllabus, to understand the syllabus. Like honestly. And I say that because you see the thing with PDHPE is unlike other subjects, like this is the subject where where the way in which the question is like honestly most of the time like simply plucked from the syllabus. Like it's literally same wording, it's just plucked from the syllabus and that's it. And so all you need to actually remember is what to talk about under each dot point. And and obviously you need to remember what you actually have to talk about, what you have to write about under each dot point. But the thing is, a lot of that is pretty intuitive, because for example, in sport and stuff, like it's pretty intuitive, and examples they form the backbone of it. So I would recommend the first thing you should prioritize when it comes to PDHPE is remembering your syllabus. Really, really important. And once you know your syllabus, then you go ahead and get in your examples and then focus on practice questions. I would say that would be my key tip. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of things that we can do here, but I would say the first thing, if you are with PD, if you're a bit behind, start by prioritizing the syllabus, memorize the syllabus, know what comes under each dot point, because that's what the questions are based on. For example, if the question's asking you critique the role of epidemiology, right? And now if you remember the syllabus, you would know on that left hand side, when you look at epidemiology, you have to talk about the role of epidemiology, you have to talk about the measures of epidemiology. And then on the left hand side, we talk about whether or not epidemiology gives us, the full understanding of, let's say, if it gives us a full holistic understanding of health, of Australia's health measures. So it's, knowing the syllabus, that's going to be the key for PDHPE. So definitely, so I like to make mind maps where I would start off with like the inquiry question in the middle and then branch off that. So you can make it on A4 piece of paper, you can make it on A3, whatever you like. But I think very important, if you are looking to memorize the syllabus and remember the content, mind maps are a great way to go. Okay, so let us now start focusing on our writing workshop. So, putting our PE brains onto paper. We are going to firstly start by looking at how to write amazing responses, and we're going to focus on intros. We're then going to look at the verbs, the importance of the verbs. So we have to show the marker that we have the A game, that we understand the question. With any HSC subject really, I think other than English maybe, or math actually as well, like for most of your STEM and humanities subject with the HSC, understanding the verb is like the most important thing ever. It's really, really important. So you've got to understand the verb, and it's exactly the same in PDHPE. And then finally, examples. PE without examples is like a burger without buns. Like, honestly, the examples are the key to PDHPE, along with the syllabus, of course. And you'll find that with PDHPE, if you look at the marking guidelines for any question, look at it for any question, it would say provides relevant examples in the highest sort of mark band. It would say that because they need you to provide examples, because PE, is definitely a very PDHPE is definitely a very intuitive subject as well. It's sports. It's the way your bodies work. It's the way in which we in which we move and behave, in which sports people move and behave. So examples are really, really important. I've gotten questions in the past which are like, oh, but should I know like just like examples across a range of different sports, or should I just know like one or two examples I can use all the time? Look, it depends. It really does depend on how you should approach that. But I would reckon that honestly, if there's a sport that you're really familiar with, use those examples. Like, you don't have to go ahead and learn you don't have to go ahead and learn the rules and the all the complexities of a sport, just whatever I mean, I'm not the most sporty person I know, absolutely not, but like, if you watch football, let's say, and let's say you watch the FIFA World Cup, so you have plenty of examples that you can use those examples. If you watch a bit of cricket, use those examples. It's just essentially, yeah, talk about what you know. That's the best, I would say, best thing to do with PDHPE. Alrighty, so let's move on. 0 to 100. How do we go from 0 to 100? Right? So, we start off with introductions. Now, introductions are a great way to set up your response. The thing with PDHPE is that you are often told that you don't need to have a structure like this, like it's fine if you just list dot points. I would recommend against that. I would recommend that you always have a structure to start off with. And introductions are always really great, even if it's, let's say you get a 5 mark or a 6 mark. A one line intro is more than enough, so always recommend to start off like on a really strong note. So introductions, great way to show the marker that you know how to write. Now the syllabus, so also what we do in the introduction is we make sure that the syllabus is identified. So the syllabus dot point that we will be talking about is identified. The directive verb is understood, so that's really important. And finally, the confidence is high. So we're going to go through some examples, and we're going to talk about the importance of whether or not you should have an introduction or not. So here we are. Assess the characteristics of a skilled performer. So for a question like this, firstly, let's break it down. Assess. There we go. Alright. Assess the characteristics of a skilled performer. So immediately you should be thinking, which core is this from? Right? That's the first thing you should think to yourself. And your answer would be core 2. This is from core 2. The second thing you should ask yourself is, what dot point is this from? And this is from the last dot point of core 2, which is how can skill acquisition affect performance? Or actually can't remember if that's the exact wording of it, but it's the last, because I remember it like in terms of pages, like it was on the last page and I can see it, and it's on the same page as yeah, where they talk about, for example, cognitive, associative versus autonomous learner. So a skilled performer would be at an autonomous stage of learning. And then a skilled performer, now within the syllabus, there were 3 to 4 keywords that they wanted us to discuss with a skilled performer. The first one that I always remember is starts with a K. Can anyone think of what we actually um, call a skilled performer? What do they have that normal performers or people who are just learning or amateurs don't have? Starts with a K. And if you said kinesthetic sense, you'd be right. So that's one of the qualities, right? And I'm just like, am I going to write this all out with my highlighter turned pen? Let's just do it. All right, so the first thing that they have is kinesthetic sense, right? That's one of the abilities of a skilled performer. Then they also have anticipation, they have consistency, and they also have technique. So those are the 4 characteristics of a skilled performer. This is a 5 marker. So if you mention all 4 and you describe them and you actually assess these characteristics and what they are, you get your 5 marks. Now, one thing you have to make sure to do here is that, for example, if you did not remember what part of this, you said, okay, it's from core 2, but if you do not remember that within core 2, in that dot point, it actually says in brackets next to characteristics of skilled performer, kinesthetic sense, um, consistency, anticipation, and technique, you would not be able to get the 4 marks because you would not know what to talk about. So this is an example of where knowing your syllabus is so imperative. Alrighty, so let's have a look at an introduction for this. Okay, so if you were to write an introduction for this, we could write a skilled performer often demonstrates characteristics such as kinesthetic sense, anticipation, consistency, and technique. And that's our intro. That's the first line, and it immediately tells the marker that you actually know your content. It tells a marker that you know your content, that you're not just going to say random stuff about how skilled performers are able to understand the technique, they're able to they're able to do it fast, or they're able to adapt to different environments. That those sorts of answers are very generic, and that tells a marker that you did not quite know which part of the syllabus it was from. So an introduction is really good here because it really sets out that stage, to show that the syllabus, and you know exactly what they're asking you from the syllabus. Okay, let's have a look at the second question now. Um, what are the responsibilities of the 3 levels of government for the delivery of health services in Australia? So this is a 4 marker. And what we have sort of happening here is essentially that we are going to start off by looking at, firstly, uh, what core it's from, and then we're going to talk about the syllabus. So what are the responsibilities of each of the 3 levels of government for the delivery of health services in Australia? So if you said core 1, you'd be correct, and I might just use a pen because highlight is huge. But let's see if I can write straight with a pen though. Okay, so this is core 1. It's getting there. Well, it's alright, bear with me, guys. Alright, so this is from core 1. Now, the 3 levels of government. Hopefully you should know this. We've got local, we've got state, and we've got federal. There we go. Federal or Commonwealth. Federal's fine. Alrighty, so then we've got the federal government. So now we have to look at what are the responsibilities of each of the three levels of government for Australia. So what in this response, what happens is it's a four marker. So the way I would split this up is you would get probably 1 mark for identifying the three levels of government here, and then after you do that, the rest of the 3 marks are sort of divided then into actually identifying and describing the responsibilities of each of the 3 levels, right? So you need to make sure that here we set up our response, right? So we structure it up and we set it up and we address the question. So that is really, really important. So yeah, so have a think about what are the three responsibilities. Sorry, what are the responsibilities of each of the 3 levels of government in Australia for the delivery of health services. Um, so let's start with the federal government. So the federal government is responsible for the funding overall for lots of research. The federal government is responsible for obviously funding the state government, but then the state government is responsible for running the hospitals and everything. That's not what the uh, Commonwealth, that's not what the federal government does. The state government is the one that runs the hospitals and takes care of the ambulances and stuff. And then the local government is responsible for initiating community sort of programs. Also for example, it's the local governments that check that health atlas and stuff following governmental regulations when it comes to preparing food and all of that. So every level is working in a different way. Every level of government is working together, but in different ways to ensure health services are provided. So let's have a look at how we would structure an introduction for this question. So here we are. The 3 levels of government in Australia are local, state, and federal government. So that'd be a good intro, and then you go on from there. So the federal government is responsible for conducting research, for conducting research, gathering actual data, actually um, creating health promotion initiatives. That's also the federal government. So things that we look at, for example, close the gap, um, national tobacco strategy, the ones that we've looked at in the Ottawa Charter section of the syllabus, all of those health promotion initiatives, they are organized by the federal government. Research and funding is organized by the federal government. The state government looks after the hospitals and ambulances, and then the local government looks after, for example, local food outlets and stuff, maintaining healthy administration of those services. Also looks at community services as well that are offered within the community. Okay, so that would then be the rest of the response. So you always have to give lots of examples. All right, that's really, really important as we move ahead with these questions. Examples are the key to success in PDHPE, along with knowing your syllabus. Okay, let's have a look at this question. Explain why individuals, communities, and governments should work in partnership on health promotion initiatives. Provide examples. So here is an 8 marker, and it is definitely a challenging 8 marker because there's a lot that you have to talk about. So explain why individuals, communities, and governments should work in partnership on health promotion initiatives. Provide examples. So let's have a look. Which core is this from, do you think? Put it in the chat. So if you said core 1, you would be correct. Absolutely. It is from core 1. Now, explained by individuals, communities, and governments, they work together in partnership on health promotion initiatives. So what examples do you reckon you'd have to provide here? A question like this. What sorts of examples would you be providing? Now, if you said health promotion initiatives in the chat? Absolutely. So health promotion initiatives, those are the ones that you will be health promotion initiatives are the ones that you'll be using as examples in your response. So this is where having knowledge of the syllabus is really important, because remember, from the syllabus, from the core one syllabus, you should have done two, you should have looked at two, what do we call it, two health promotion initiatives, and so you should have a good understanding of those, and those are the ones you'll be using. So we will be providing health promotion initiatives. So in this question, essentially, when why do you think, and again, put this in the chat, why do you think individuals, communities, and governments should work in partnership on health promotion initiative? And see if you can give me an example. So, with this question, I actually do want you to jot down some ideas in the chat, and I'll be obviously there to, to let you know if you're on the right track. Is that why do we actually do this? Why are these three sort of levels of, levels of society basically? Why are these three groups working together, and why should they work together? And is there an example of a health promotion initiative that has been more successful because of this collaboration? So if you said that, yep, they should work together, and if you said something along the lines of the fact that they allow for the greater sharing of resources, the greater understanding of needs and resources that people actually need in Australia to improve the Australian health outcome and to increase the capacity to improve Australia's health, you will be absolutely correct. That is exactly why these three levels of community are working together. Individuals, okay, so essentially, communities know what people need, what their people need. So that's why, and governments essentially are the ones who can provide the resources that they need, who can provide the funding, the research, the connections that are needed to make these initiatives um, follow through. And individuals, they are the ones who have to actually go ahead and take advantage of these initiatives for them to work, because those initiatives are aimed towards them. So with examples, you could have given a range of different examples. You could talk about again, like the popular examples I've given, close the gap. You could talk about national tobacco strategy. You could talk about Head to Health, which is a mental health initiative, health promotion initiative. So you could sort of do any of them as long as you link it back to why are individuals, communities, and governments working together, right? So I'll give you an example, for example. I'll give you an example. So let's have a look at the National Tobacco Strategy, right? And the National Tobacco Strategy has, I'm just trying to think. So we've got individuals, communities, and governments working together. So let's look at the building healthy public policy part of it. So with the National Tobacco Strategy, they have legislated laws so that on the cigarette packets, they like they show dire warning images, and the aim of that is to actually allow people to sort of see the effects of that. So governments and communities, so let's start with governments first. So um adapted sorry governments have adopted these measures in order to showcase, or in order to actually bring to light the detrimental effects of smoking. And they would have done that because communities know that people, especially communities, let's say, that are multilingual, where not everyone can actually read and speak English. So people just buy cigarettes for their brands and so on. But everyone can, but most people will understand the detrimental effects of smoking once they see the images, once they see the warning images on the packs. And so then it's up to individuals to actually, to actually sort of act on that, and to sort of understand the importance of not of sort of choosing the healthier option, really. So that's really important. I'll give you another example of health promotion initiative. uh, and that is the no school no play policy, which was implemented in Jigalong, and it was really really successful because it's because there were high school dropout rates for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and so what they did was they made pools in schools, so it was like if you didn't come to school you won't have access to the pool, and so as a result, the attendance rates, like the retention rates in school, they increased from 20% to 80%. That's huge. And also crime rates went down close to a zero. So it had a huge impact. So you should know these examples from a range of places in the syllabus, and you should be able to use them. Perfect. So let's have a look at introduction for this. So individuals, communities, and governments should work in partnership on health promotion initiatives like the Slip Slop Slap campaign. And you can use any example you like here, but here we're saying that individuals, communities, and governments can work in partnership um, for something like the Slip Slop Slap campaign. Now, that is an intro, that is a first sentence, and then we'll continue on and continue on from there. Now, one thing with this response is that it's an 8 marker, so for an 8 marker you will be writing plenty, and you'd have to give lots and lots of examples and actually go into a lot of detail as well. So let's have a look now. Okay, so are introductions necessary? Now that's an interesting question. Sometimes, no. For lower weighted questions or questions that have lower rated verbs like describe, outline, identify, no, they're not. They're not needed. But sometimes, yes, they are. For higher order questions, like the examples that we've gone through, intros are great for assess, analyze, evaluate. Intros are really, really good. And they really help you structure your response. And remember, you're getting the marks when the marker can see the answer, not when the marker is trying to find the answer between like a bit of a waffle. And that's what happens when you just sort of, especially for higher mark questions, I would never recommend like writing in dot points or bullet points for higher mark questions, because it's not as clear as it can be. So always recommend paragraphs, because that way, as a writer, as a person who's actually writing the response, you know exactly what you want from each paragraph, what point you're trying to get across. Okay, so we're going to do some practice questions. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you I'm going to ask you the question, whether or not we need an intro for all the questions. All right, so let's have a go. I would like you to jot stuff down. I would like you to write your answers in the chat. This is like I said, this is not, your generic lecture, in the sense that sorry, just gotta close my window. Okay, so this is not like a normal lecture in the sense, well, it is a normal lecture, but it's not a lecture in the sense where I'm going to sit and go through the content, right? I already told you we're going to actually apply our knowledge today. So take out a piece of paper and a pen, or you can type it up into the chat, but I'd definitely like you to send through your points in the chat as well if you like. So let's have a go. Let's have a go at these practice questions. So this is our first question. Outline 3 physiological adaptations in response to aerobic training. It is a 3 marker. Now, do we need an introduction for this? If you think we do, write one down. That's what I want you to do. If you think we need an introduction, I'm going to give you a chance now to write it down. So, a couple of things that I want to draw your attention to while you guys are writing is, firstly, the verb here, which is outline. Then we've got, like, it wants us to specifically outline 3 physiological responses and adaptations in response to aerobic training. Now, aerobic training is your second keyword, not just to training, but to aerobic training. So, what do we think? Now, this is where, again, knowing the syllabus is so important, because this is coming straight from the syllabus. Are we ready? Shall I reveal the answer? I'll give you 1 more second to, or yeah, let's go 10 more seconds to jot down your answer in the chat. If we need an, what are the outline 3 physiological adaptations in response to aerobic training? And do we need an introduction for it? All right, 10 seconds. And do we need an introduction for it? Drum roll. We don't quite need an introduction for it because it is a 3 marker. And here are your answers. So let me get my highlighter out. Like I said, outline, that's your key there. It's an outline, so you just literally write 3 down. That's all you have to do. But you have to remember it's for aerobic training. Aerobic training. So aerobic training is going to, now remember the aerobic energy system uses what? Uses oxygen. So this will have something to do with our body's increased capacity to, carry oxygen, for example. So the 3 that you could talk about could include, for example, stroke volume and cardiac output. Those 2 are always good. You could also talk about oxygen uptake. That is also a really good one. But hemoglobin level would be the one I talk about as well. So hemoglobin level happens. So hemoglobin level increases. Now hemoglobin, remember, it's got our red blood cells in it, and so basically oxygen latches onto the red blood cells and through that travels throughout the body. And you could also talk about resting heart rate. We wouldn't quite talk about muscular hypertrophy because it's asking specifically about aerobic training, and so same with effect on soft twitch and fast twitch muscles as well. So we'd stick with these 4 here. The reason I haven't highlighted lung capacity is because lung capacity doesn't quite actually change after training. So what happens is that essentially, like, the size of your lungs does not change. So there's not really a, and I'm so sorry, the screen, I've just got the screen back. I mean, it's starting to get a bit a bit dark, so I swear to God, I'm awake, I'm very engaged. Just, yeah, screen, and it's a blue screen. Look at that, the color is very blue. And I did wake up a bit early today. No, but okay, so let's have a look now. So yes, I wouldn't quite talk about rest. I actually would talk about resting heart rate, but wouldn't quite talk about muscular hypertrophy or effect on slow twitch or fast twitch muscles or lung capacity. So if you said either of the 5 there, you would be good to go. Okay, let's have a look at another question then. So again, get your pens and papers ready. This is an 8 marker. So do we need an introduction for this? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to decide. Now here we have to describe the different recovery strategies that are used by athletes to improve performance. Describe the different recovery strategies used by athletes to improve performance. So recovery strategies, which call would that be from? What do we think? So if you said call 2, you would be correct. Now, can you remember which dot point it's going to be from? If you remembered that it is from how can nutrition and recovery affect performance, you are also correct. So well done. So now, do we need an intro for this? Now, if you do need an intro, write one down. Write one down and paste your intro into the chat right now. What would your intro be for this question? It's an 8 marker, though it says describe the different recovery strategies used by athletes to improve performance. What would your introduction be? I am going to give you 20 seconds to finish writing that intro in the chat for me, and I'm going to check it. You ready? And let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, let's have a look. So this is from the how does nutrition and recovery affect performance, part of the syllabus. And essentially there are there are four recovery strategies that you have to talk about. And the syllabus says that you have to actually research these recovery strategies to discern their main features. So you should know the main features of these, and you should know how they actually, what are the proposed benefits to performance for these. You should also know that. Okay, so shall we have a look? There we go. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got physiological strategies. So physiological strategies include cool down and hydration. Neural strategies includes hydrotherapy and massage. Tissue damage strategies includes cryotherapy, and psychological strategy includes relaxation. So you should be able to, in a response, the way I would write that response, I would definitely have an introduction because it's an 8 marker. So something like the recovery strategies are essential to an athlete's improvement in performance, or to an athlete's performance, and they include physiological strategies, neural strategies, tissue damage, and psychological strategies. And you could also give examples too, but I'd just talk about the examples in the body paragraphs. And in this case, I would probably do 4 body paragraphs. I would actually talk about each of the one in its separate body paragraphs: physiological, then neural, the tissue damage, then psychological strategy. And with each one, your goal is to actually link it back to the benefit to performance. That's what you have to do. So let us move on to the next question. So hopefully so far you've been getting a gist of whether or not to write introductions. You remember the syllabus. Every time I'm asking you a question, answer it to yourself. And obviously, hopefully, you're writing your answers out in the chat. That's really important. So definitely do not forget to write your answers out in the chat. So let's have a look at the next practice question. Alright, what I was saying, I was gonna, alrighty, and I'm saying crikey, alrighty, I don't know. Alrighty, so here we are. This is a third practice question. Describe 2 action areas of the Ottawa Charter. Describe 2 action areas of the Ottawa Charter. So, the verdict is yours. Do we need an introduction for this question? I'm gonna wait for you. And if you said no, you would be right. Yep, wouldn't quite use an intro for this question. And what would be the 2 action areas of the Ottawa Charter that you talk about? And give me a little description. So, alright, did I say I did that alright again? Alrighty, so let's have a look. Ottawa Charter. Now, the way I like to remember the action areas is by using this mnemonic. There are many, but this is the one I like to use. Dog crap smells really bad. Dog crap smells really bad. And this should be even easier for those of you who have a pet, who have a dog, to remember, right? So the way I remember it is dog crap smells really bad. D stands for developing personal experiences. C stands for creating supportive environments. S stands for strengthening community action. R stands for reorienting health services. And B stands for building healthy public policy. So all you had to do was describe 2 of them in the question before. And essentially the way you do that is, you just sort of describe what they include. So, developing personal skills, for example, refers back to using education and awareness to raise the importance of key ideas. And to encourage students from a young age to sort of to raise awareness of those ideas. So, for example, PDHP in schools, like compulsory PDHPE from kindergarten all the way up to year 10 is an example of that. And so is So is Year 12 be street smart? That's also an example of developing personal skills. And you can also, and then the second one I could talk about is building healthy public policy. Building healthy public policy pertains to the use of legislation and law in order to promote a certain health initiative. So you've got to make sure that you link it back, and that you're linking it back and giving examples as well. Examples are really, really important. They are important. Right here. Here we go. So examples, don't forget examples. So let's move on then to our fourth practice question. Look at us smash it out. So our fourth practice question, again, make sure you're writing it in the chat and that you are sending it to me as well. Okay, so to what extent is access to healthcare facilities and services equitable for all Australians? This is another 8 marker. So will you write an introduction for this question? And if so, what would you talk about? Think about the keywords now. Firstly, the verb there is, to what extent. Then, access to healthcare facilities and services equitable for all Australians. So when they mean healthcare facilities and services equitable to all Australians, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? And this is part of Core 1, and we've kind of looked at this in Core 1. What is the system in Australia that allows, to some extent, for healthcare and healthcare services to be equitable for everyone? Any answers? So if you said Medicare, absolutely. Medicare would be one of the key things you talk about in this response, because that is the way in which generally like the equality they're trying to achieve equity by giving everyone that option of Medicare, and also some people have pharmaceutical benefit scheme that's attached to that, and that's if they want, and that's for subsidized medicines. So that's a fourth practice question. Now, did you think we need an intro for that question? If you said yes, you would be absolutely right. So is our here is our syllabus point. So this is where it came from in the syllabus. So what role do healthcare facilities and services play in achieving better health for all Australians? So healthcare in Australia, so this syllabus dot point looks at healthcare in Australia, looks at range and types of medical facilities, responsibilities for health facilities and services, equity of access, healthcare expenditure, emerging impact, and health insurance. And you have to evaluate how healthcare in Australia is by investigating issues of access and adequacy in relation to social justice principles. So within that response, you would be talking about the social justice principles, because that is how the syllabus wanted you to approach that. So questions to explore include: how equitable is the access? How much responsibility should the community assume for individual health problems? So once my cursor decides to come back, there we are, and let's go have a look at the part of the syllabus that this is from. So sorry, that is the part of the syllabus it's from, sorry. So now let's move on to testing our understanding. So were there any questions firstly there? If there were, please do not hesitate to ask. Okay, so let's have a look at now testing our understanding. Now, directive verbs point us in the right direction, and they're really important, because if you don't quite understand them, and you don't appreciate them, and you don't use them, you're not going to get good marks. You're not going to get full marks, rather. You may still get good marks overall, but you can definitely maximize those marks. So let's have a look at how the directive verb can point us in the right direction. And if we understand that, then we can determine where our marks coming from. So let's have a look. The directive verb, like we said, will tell you exactly what you need to do to actually answer the question. It tells you exactly and it gives you a really, really good understanding of how much you should be writing as well and how much time you should be spending on those questions. It is easy to identify and the buzzwords come naturally. So before we have a look at some of these verbs, I just quickly want to go through one more thing. And that is the fact that essentially when it comes to like writing and just just answering a question, something that we tend to do here at Shoot Smart is that when we do timed questions, we do it according to 2 minutes per mark. So basically it's like, yeah, for every single mark you get 2 minutes. So that I think is a good indicator of how fast you kind of want to be into your writing and how much. Just because, and the reason I came up with this number is because 180 divided by 100 is 1.8, so 1.8 minutes. And so what that means is that that's 2 minutes and 20 seconds, 1.8 minutes. And so as a result, if you spend about 2 minutes per question, you've got 20 seconds left over to for each question, so that you can sort of use up as a bank later on. So I would highly recommend that. You are essentially timing yourself and giving yourself a certain time to do the question in, and it can also help you make sure that you are being concise, you're being to the point, and you're not writing a lot. Because what happens is when we write a lot, when we keep writing, it tends to become more of a stream of consciousness thing, and it also tends to become contradictory as well. Okay, so let's have a look at a different verbs. Now before we do that, I'm just going to switch on my lights. Okay, so let's start off with the verb of outline. So outline is when we are sketching something in general terms. So we're just listing it or we're just identifying it. You don't have to explain it, you don't have to describe it, you just actually just literally write down, you just outline. So this, the way we had to outline 3 physiological adaptations to training, that's all you have to do. Then we've got describe. Now describe is when you actually have to show the characteristics and features of something, and you actually have to go into a bit of detail. Now I would always also add in examples in a describe question. Wouldn't quite add it in an outline question because it's just listing, but definitely the describe questions. So a describe question is basically painting the picture specifically. Now explain questions are ones that probably look a bit harder than they are, and this is where you have to show the effect, the relationship between the cause and the effect. It's like a tug-of-war relationship. It's basically this leads to that leads to this. It's that sort of that back and forth, and you have to make sure that you make it easier for the marker to understand your logic. So this is where writing and expression are also really important. Then we've got to what extent. Now, to what extent is a judgment question. So you have to make a judgment. You have to say to a great extent, to a small extent, to no extent. So please don't miss out on that. So make a judgment and then back that judgment up with your data. Really important. And it's basically asking, for example, it is asking how good or how bad is something. So you have to say it is effective to a great extent. It is not effective. It is effective to a minor extent. Whatever you want to say, you just have to make sure that you are making a judgment because it's to what extent question. So let's have a look now at an evaluate question. So this is where this shows the for and against, and basically so it's a for and against, and this is where you're going to come to a conclusion. So you're going to evaluate the arguments for two sides, and then you're going to come down and give us a conclusion on that argumentation. So evaluate the role of supplementation in in an athlete's performance. That's core 2, if you don't remember. Core 2. So that's evaluate. Now, assess, on the other part, is where you're actually more so weighing up the pros and cons. So you're considering the pros versus the cons, but you're not sort of coming to a conclusion as such. You're not being sort of divisive with it at the end. You are more so showing the two sides. You're assessing whether something's good or bad. Evaluating is different because you're showing the for and against, and then you come to a conclusion about it. Justify is proving it. When you're asked to justify something, you have to prove something, and you need to show how and why. So if they say justify the partnership, or justify partnerships between individuals, communities, and governments in implementing health promotion initiatives. So this is where you're going to say, why do we actually need it? Why do we actually need communities, governments, and people to work together to achieve a certain purpose? And then how do we do that? Why should we do that? So that's justify. And then finally, compare is where it's asking for these similarities and differences. Like, you already know that's what compare questions do. So you have to compare the celebrities and the differences. I just said celebrities. The similarities and the differences. And compare questions. Think of them as similarities and differences. Yep. Think of them as when you're sort of going through them, you've got to make sure, again, because it's a compare question, you're just comparing, you're not evaluating it, so you don't quite need that judgment on it. Okay, so let's have a look at the two responses. So what does that mean? Examples are great, and they need to be specific. They need to really showcase that you know what the content is and you know the question. Like I said earlier, you don't quite need to for this question, be too fixated on knowing certain examples. As long as you've got some examples up your technique, if you know some sport, you'll be totally fine. So just stick to that. So let's have a look. Explain what progressive overload is and why is it used. So what is progressive overload and why is it used? This is the explain question. So what do? We're going to relate the cause and the effect together. All right, so where's my question? Okay. Yeah, so why is progressive overload explain what progressive overload is and why is it used. Progressive overload, I remember from the syllabus, is when we are progressively increasing our training threshold and our training regime in order to aid in growing better and enhancing performance. So this is an example for you. Progressive overload is the act of increasing workload over successive training sessions. Example, adding kilo to a squat at each gym time, and an athlete goes to the gym. I think I've missed it here. Okay, and the athlete goes to a gym, let's say twice or thrice a week. So essentially here we can see that we gave an example. We obviously introduced what progressive overload is, and then we give an example. And that's that. And that should get you, this is probably like a 3 mark. That should get you 3 markers. Actually no, it's probably more than that. Never mind, because explain. So I'd say probably a 5 mark, maybe 5 marker. So this could be an intro, and then you add to that. Okay, let's have a look at this next question. Assess the appropriateness of supplementation for athletes. This is an assess question. What would the what would some of the examples that you use here would be? So give me some examples in the chat. Share your topic sentence in the chat. What would your intro be? So if you said for this question, when it comes to assessing the appropriateness of supplementation for athletes, like I said earlier, supplementation is only ever helpful when an athlete is already, like when an athlete's diet is not catering for the supplements, like for the natural, resources that their body needs, like vitamins and minerals and so on, and all these other nutrients. So that's the only time an athlete should be supplementing. However, if an athlete is getting all of that, if the athlete is getting a full diet, a full healthy diet, which is of has like specific servings of different elements, then they're totally fine, that they don't need supplementation. So here you'd give examples like people that need supplementation would include, for example, women, because women lose a lot of iron through their menstruation. So if they're not eating, if they're not sort of catching up on that in their meals, then they will need to consume more iron. Think about, yeah, so women, think about older people, and also for example, think about the appropriateness of supplementation for for athletes that are vegetarian or that have dietary conditions which inhibits them from consuming certain types of foods. So here is an example for us. Supplementation is argued to be necessary, appropriate for an athlete, as these nutrients can be sourced through diets. For example, iron is a component of meat, and vitamin C is found in fruit. However, the need for supplementation stems from a deficiency in the body or a risk of deficiency. This is exemplified through female athletes who may supplement the mineral iron as they risk anemia due to blood loss from menstruation. And that is the appropriateness. It is looking at both the positives and the negatives. So we are saying that essentially it is argued to be necessary. However, if it's already but it's already covered in your meals, like a huge part of it is in your meals. However, there can be need for supplementation for women athletes that could we supplement that. Sorry, it can be for female athletes who are losing mineral iron, and also it's important for them because they can risk anemia due to blood loss from menstruation. Okay, let's have a look at this question now. Justify the use of distributed part practice for beginners. So this is now, again, kind of putting everything together. So let's have a look. Justify the use of distributed part practice for beginners. This is a justify question. What do we think? How can we justify the use of distributed part practice for beginners? What are the qualities of a beginner learner, right? So a beginner learner is someone who is still gaining a gist of the movement, someone who still does not understand the movement, someone who is getting lots of feedback from coaches. They're getting lots of external feedback to improve. And so using a distributed part practice method would have worked for them. And because it's a judgment question, you've got to make sure that you are giving that judgment, that you are saying clearly yes or no. So part practice is the act of breaking down the skill into smaller sections to practice. Now, distributed practice is where the session is broken down into smaller periods of work and longer periods of rest. This is really important in this response, like getting some of those key definitions out on paper, super important. I would always recommend to actually list the key keywords there. Like, really go into definitions. There we are. Okay, so now let's have a look. For example, breaking down a layup in basketball into a dribbling section, a jumping section, and a shooting section will be very effective for beginners. It is important that they're able to perform all individual parts of the serial skill well, and distributed parts practice is very beneficial. So this is just saying, now this is just backing what we have said with the example. Always good to have examples. Yeah, layups are a really good example for like the practice sort of stuff for this module when it comes to like looking at like distributed mass, whole practice, and parts practice. Also, juggling is another good one as well. So let's move on. Now, one thing that you can see here is at the end of the response, we tie it back to our justification, to our judgment. So we've said that it is important they're able to perform all individual parts of the serial skill well, and distributed part practice is very beneficial. We're putting it all together. Okay, so let's move on to our earlier question on why essentially so we're going to rewind back to this question on why where we have to explain what progressive overload is and why is it used. So for a question like this, you can see that now we are going to give the marker what they want. The progressive overload is the act of increasing workload over successive training sessions. For example, adding a kilo to a squat weight every time an athlete goes to the gym. And this is now saying that is progressive overload. And there's definitely that cause and effect link where we're saying that this is the cause and this is the effect as a result. So you can see that we've given the marker what they are after. We have given them the pro, and then we've also ensured that as a result of that, adaptations keep coming. Okay, so let us finish off with these examples. So this is where, again, your pens will come in handy. So let's have a look. Medicare is a public health care system in Australia that covers the cost of many mental health services, such as, what are they? What are some services in Australia that are covered by Medicare? So, if you're not very familiar with this, Medicare is important because it's obviously about equality. Actually, yeah, it's more. It's equality because everyone in Australia has it. It's a bit of a tricky spot because those that are here on student or visitor visas do not have access to Medicare, but like permanent residents and permanent residents and citizens do have access to it. So it's quite important in that sense. And so Medicare is a public health system in Australia that covers the cost of many health services, including it covers so it covers things like hospital visits and stays. It covers bulk billing from your GPs. It also can cover some ancillary benefits. So like it covers dental in little kids until like a certain age. Just trying to think, what else does it cover? It covers let's see. So it covers ancillary benefits. It covers specifically it covers um free public hospital visits and stays, and it also covers bulk billing from GPs. They can also cover optometrists as well. They can also do they can also do bulk billing too. So you kind of want to have examples up your sleeves here, really important. So let's have a look at this next one. So I would like another example. Intrinsic motivation is motivation that comes from within the athlete. For instance, what are some examples for intrinsic motivations? What does it look like? And hopefully you've also done a case study on this, because the syllabus did want you to look at sports people and their intrinsic and extrinsic motivations and so on. So let's have a look. So with this question here, intrinsic motivation is one that comes from within the athlete. So it can include the desire to succeed. It can include the desire to beat their last record. It can include the desire to be the best and to, hold up the trophy, or to be the world champion or whatever. So intrinsic motivation can come in many different forms, but it is coming from within the athlete. It can be their desire to succeed, their desire to prove themselves to others, their desire to maybe succeed, and so that they can get a better contract, so they can move up somewhere else, something. So those could be some examples of intrinsic motivation right there. Okay, lovely work, guys. We're doing really well. And so now we are going to spend the next half an hour on our practice questions, all right, and doing practice questions, and we're going to be writing. So again, please keep like putting your responses in the chats. That's always really good. And ask questions. No questions are silly questions, so please ask questions, and please put through your responses, because everyone's in the same boat. We all have questions, and I'm live answering them. I'm live having a look at your answers, so keep putting them in the chat. So now let's have a look. Alrighty, so our PE brains are like sponges, so let's test the absorbency of our PE brains. So we are going to write. Now we've already looked at whether or not you need an intro for your responses. We looked at what is the purpose of the verbs, and then we looked at whether or not you have examples, and we've discussed examples just then. So let's now put it all together. Are we all ready? Let's do it. So send your responses through in the chat, guys. Now, note the marks. Even though it is implicit, note the marks, and I will give you a couple of minutes to have a look at this question. What are the advantages to Australians of having a public healthcare system? It is a 3-marker. And while you're jotting some stuff down, I'll just kind of walk you through this. So, what are the advantages to Australians of having a public healthcare system? This is obviously from Core 1. I hope we all remember that. It's from Core 1. We're looking specifically at advantages. And when it comes to public healthcare system, remember we want to include examples like Medicare, for example, and PBS, and we want to include these examples. They're really important. So let's have a look. I hope you were able to jot some points down. I'll give you a minute to finish up. So put some answers in the chat. What are the advantages? Even if it's just, even if you don't write the whole sentence out, that's okay. That's what you should be doing in an exam, though, writing it all out. We've talked about structure today. That's what we've talked about. So writing a proper structure. But in the chat, you can write down some advantages for Australians of having a public healthcare system. Ready? I'm gonna give you 20 more seconds. I'm just looking at the timer on my PowerPoint so that I can time it effectively. Are you guys ready? Let's have a look. What are the advantages? I'm really hoping the answers are trickling in the chat. 3 markers. So think about how many are you going to give? How many examples will you give me for a 3 marker? Okay, let's have a look. So this is from this part of the syllabus, right? This is taken directly from here. Where are we? Where is it? There we go. equity of access to health facilities and services. All right, and also the benefits is part of it. So it's not here, but it's part of what are the advantages. Alrighty, so what are the advantages, and what are the advantages of having a specific public healthcare systems? There are lots of advantages. So Medicare is our public healthcare system, and through Medicare we have access to bulk billing from GPs. Through Medicare we have access to um, hospital stays and visits. We have access to some ancillary benefits through Medicare as well. So um, plenty of plenty of advantages from the public healthcare system, and we also have access to, and some people also have access to PBS through Medicare, which means that they can get medicines at a discounted price. So let's have a look at this question now. How can flexibility improve athletic performance? So this is, as I'm sure you can tell, athletic performance, that's the keyword of core 2. So this is indeed from core 2. And here we're focusing specifically on flexibility. How can flexibility improve athletic performance? So what we want to do is we kind of want to make sure now that we remember the syllabus dot point that it came from. So can you jot some dot points in the chat for me? How can flexibility improve athletic performance? Jot down some main points quickly. What do we think? Okay, I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to finish up. So remember, within flexibility, we are looking at different types of stretching. That's a key. So for a question like this, you should be actually make sure that you are like listing what the part of the syllabus is, and in this case, that is actually listing the different types of flexibility and like stretching for that, and then link it to athletic performance. Okay, let's have a look at it. So with this question, here we are. This is from the first part of core 2. So here we go. So flexibility includes static, ballistic, PNF, and dynamic stretching. So to improve flexibility, an athlete can undertake static, ballistic, PNF, and dynamic stretching. And stretching is imperative because it essentially warms up an individual, and if they have flexibility, they have a lesser chance of, um, tearing a muscle, or they have a lesser chance of actually getting injured. Basically, that's the big reason as to why flexibility is really important, is that it reduces the chance of injury, and to improve flexibility we do stretching. So super important. And obviously it would improve performance because it reduces the chance of injury, it increases your range of motion so that you can do more, and that improves performance. So well done. Now let's have a go at another question. Now let's have a go at this question. Why is it important for athletes to develop the elements of performance? This is a good question. Why is it important for athletes to develop the elements of performance? What do we reckon? So this part of the question, the elements of performance, it can, now this, I think this is probably it's not obscure as such, but it's definitely probably one of the parts that's easily forgotten by students in the syllabus. So if you're having trouble remembering what part of the syllabus it's from, always start with the core. So you are right, it's from core 2. If you are thinking it's from core 2, hopefully you are all thinking that it is from core 2. There we go. Let's have a look then at the elements of performance. What actually are they? So these are the elements of performance. decision making, strategic, and tactical development. So you should have, now this is why I said at the beginning, knowing the syllabus and remembering and understanding the syllabus is so important, because if you don't have a good understanding of this, you won't remember. Yeah, because if you don't have a good understanding of the syllabus and you can't remember the syllabus, you won't know what to talk about. So if you weren't just then, if you weren't like, what were the elements of performance, it's a little bit of a hint that you have to go back and remember the syllabus. You have to remember parts of the syllabus. So here you talk about, because it's an 8 marker, I'd have an intro, the elements of, it is important for an athlete to develop the elements of performance, which include strategic and tactical thinking, and also decision making. And then I would probably have a paragraph on each. Now, with a question like this, it doesn't say provide examples, but you have to provide examples. I'll give examples for each of them. So for example, decision making. A skilled athlete should be able to make effective and fast decisions based on kinesthetic sense and tactical reading of the game. For example, in cricket, if a batter is once a batter sort of sees a fast ball coming at them and it is a bouncer, they have to immediately make the decision whether or not it's too high for them to play or if they're going to leave it. And if they, and the decision is obviously really important because and obviously that's very important, because if they play it and it's too high, it can hit the bat and it can go to one of the slips, or if it's too, it could even hit them. So it's probably, if it's coming as a bouncer, probably better to leave it. So that's decision making. And it also sort of sort of ties into strategic and tactical development. But for that, I might use different example. So, for example, in football, the formation of the team, should be based on the a skilled athlete, and skilled athletes and obviously coaches as well should be able to base the formation of the team on the tactical decisions of the opposite team. So if the opposite team has a strong attack, we should probably have let's say a 4-4 3 structure, or no, actually a 4-5-2 structure. That's what the Matildas had in the English game. I think it was a 4-5-2 structure. So there's like the midfielder, there's 5 of them, and then that way they can move back as well when needed for defending. So that's where examples are really important, and you give examples that you're comfortable sharing, that you are that the examples that sports examples that that would be my big tip. Okay, so let's have a look now at the next question. Discuss the impact of emerging new treatments and technologies in relation to healthcare in Australia. So let's have a look at this question. What do we do? Now, this is a 5-marker. We've got discuss the impact of emerging new treatments and technologies in relation to healthcare in Australia. So discuss is when we are discussing both the sort of both sides of the point, like where is it at, is it accessible to everyone or is it not, and you've got to know your examples here. So some of the new treatments and technologies that you may have talked about in class will include things like keyhole surgery. That's a big one. Keyhole surgery is a really big one. That's one of the big ones actually. And also other things like, for example, operations like eye operations, like laser eye operations, all of that's all new emerging treatments. So you should be able to talk about those. But then when it comes to actually discussing the impact of these technologies, you have to talk about, well, yes, they're new. They are, they've got a huge impact. And again, jot down your answers in the chat. Let me know what you think in the chat. What would be some examples that you discuss in the chat? But essentially with questions like these, you have to talk about the fact that yes, they're emerging, and especially with keyhole surgery, for example, it is a very safe a very quick, a very less, and definitely a less invasive process than a normal surgery, which means that the person recovers faster, they can return back to work faster, it's safer, there's less chances of infection, and so on. So it's very positive in that. But the thing is that this emerging treatment is not readily available to everyone. Not everyone has access to it. People have to go on waiting lists that are huge, long waiting lists to actually have access to these technologies, and they're not all fully funded by Medicare either. Actually, that one, yeah, they're not. Well, I no, they are. No, they are fully funded. No, 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 they are fully funded. I'm getting confused. I'm confusing myself there. Wait a sec. Keyhole surgery. Now I do think it's covered, but there's a long waiting list. That's the thing. It's covered, but it's a long waiting list. So we've got to make sure that when you're discussing this, you discuss both the pros and the cons. Really, really important. So let's now have a look at where we go from here. So we did a lot today, we did a lot today in terms of practice questions, and we went through a lot, and I hope you found these practice questions helpful. I hope you found them, useful, and I'm really hoping you took the like the most out of these responses, and actually send through your responses in the chat. I would recommend that you keep doing that, and we've definitely got some time now, so keep sending through your responses. So as you now sort of finish up, and you now look at that revision time ahead, I reckon firstly continue to work on practice questions. Even if you are finding it a bit hard to sit down and do like a whole 3-hour paper, which I would definitely recommend closer to the date, but for now, and as you're getting into your study, if you're finding it a bit hard, just do some practice questions. Like I said, we like to aim for about 2 minutes per mark here. This is just like, it's kind of not random, but it's definitely a bit of a estimate. It can take you more, it can take you less, but this is just the benchmark I use when I'm doing practice questions with my class. We just do that because it essentially, yeah, it's because the paper is worth 180 marks. Sorry, no, it is worth 100 marks. It's 180 minutes long. There we go. It's 180 minutes long. It's worth 100 marks. So just do the math. And so it's like 1.8 minutes per mark. And so that equates to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. 1.8 minutes. So 1.8 minutes and 1 minute 80 seconds is 2 minutes 20 seconds. Same thing. And so I've use that to sort of go like 2 minutes per mark as a benchmark, and so that means that you've got 20 seconds sort of sitting in a bank like investment for every question that you do. So you can use that. So if you use that formula, let's say, and you time yourself and you want to do only, you do like a 8 marker, it's only 16 minutes. That's it. You've done an 8 mark. You've done a long answer response. Okay, sorry, I think that's not my building. Luckily, that's someone else's building. Yeah, that's not my building. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it's like an evacuation alarm, but we're fine. It's my neighboring building. Okay, so yeah, so with that question, it's really important that that you continue to work on practice questions, and 2 minutes per mark is, I would reckon, a good estimate. Gives you that 20 minutes in the bank to be used later on, and it's a good way to, even if you're finding it a bit hard to motivate yourself to do it, do a couple of questions. But as you get closer to the exams, I would recommend spending the 3 hours on the entire exam. You can also do sections, right? You can do like just the multiple choice section, right? 20 marks, get over and done with it in 40 minutes. And then you could do the section 2, which is just the core 1 and core 2 short answer questions. Do that, get over and done with it. And that's 40 marks. And then do the electives question as well. Break it down, guys. Remember, doing something is so much better than doing nothing. So break it down if you have to, but get something done. Now, memorize and understand the syllabus, so important. I've talked about like the importance of using mind maps and stuff. It's really helpful. Now, prioritize learning areas. Use the traffic light system. The traffic light system is something that really worked well for me for STEM subjects and for PDHPE. And that was basically like, so you get out, so print out the syllabus. So, you get the syllabus from school, you get the syllabus, you take three highlighters, pink or red if you've got a red highlighter, green and yellow. So your pink or your red highlighter, it's like basically the traffic light, right? So anything that does not make sense that you find is a bit hard, you're like, oh, I hope it doesn't come in the exam, you highlight that like red or pink. Anything that sort of makes sense and you're like, if it came in the exam, I might be able to scrape 1 or 2 marks, you highlight that yellow. And anything that you're like, oh, I'll be fine with it, I'll be able to answer it, should be okay, I want the whole paper to actually be about this question, highlight that green. And that way you go back and you have a look, and all the sections of the syllabus um, that you've highlighted red, those are the ones that you want to prioritize learning and revising. The sections that you have highlighted yellow will come up next in that category, and then the sections that you have highlighted um, green will be the ones that you can definitely go back and you should revise them, but you know that you'll be safe with those. One more thing with that is that with the traffic light system, be easy on yourself, like be kind to yourself. Don't just go ticking everything red because you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'll be able to do it. Just go tick everything red. Don't do that. That will stress you out even more. And why do I say that with so much confidence? Because I've done it. Because I've done it for bio and chem, and I've gone back and I've been like, oh, this is, wow, this is bad. And then I'm like, no, actually, you know what? I do know this. So let me just ease off a bit on the red and actually think like logistically, will I be able to scrape some marks? And if the answer is yes, it's a yellow. Will I be able to get full marks? Answers green. Answers yes, green. Will I be thinking, what should I do? If that's a yes, red is a highlighter. So that's a really good way to prioritize. I think it's a good way to do it. And then finally, take it easy on yourself. You are so much bigger than the HSC, so take it easy on yourself. Studying, blessings. So past papers like we did today, they're very effective. And I would recommend, and I was saying this in my bio lecture as well, is that if like you, I would recommend that instead of prioritizing like rewriting your notes or like actively or rather reading over your notes, that is a very passive way of studying. Doing past papers is a great way of studying. So like we did today, preparing for the HSC, past papers are the way to go. It gets you exposed to questions and answers, which increases your confidence. It's really, really helpful. Now, group study, working with others is awesome, right? Because you can all work on the questions together. It's helpful, so I recommend it works. However, if you find that, for example, if you find that distracts you a bit, that's okay too. So study by yourself. Something that really helped me was like teaching myself, like talking to myself and teaching myself, like that really helped me. And I would like record myself teaching as well. uh the syllabus, finally, so important that you know where the question's coming from. Like we saw with many of the questions today, if you did not know the syllabus in detail and you didn't know exactly what part of the syllabus they are asking you to write from, you wouldn't know how exactly to actually answer the question, so you'd find that hard. So alrighty, let's move on. So I think it turns out the alarm is coming from my building, but that's okay. It's generally usually a bit of a false thing. So it's all right. We're gonna we're gonna finish this recording. So let's now have a look at what should you do, right? So you should take little steps every day when it comes to studying for PDHP. It can be fun, right? It definitely adds variety, especially if your other steps, um, if your other notes are sort of concentrated. Bonus points are if you know where studying for PE comes from, like what to actually study for. So things that can really help includes like flashcards, right? So it includes flashcards, right? Add some spice, test yourself using flashcards. You can use online flashcard generators. You can obviously make them on a piece of paper. That always works as well. You can even do this online, get white Quizlet. That always works. So flashcards are really good. Verbal like cues, so verbal cues and like verbally actually talking out loud really helps as well. So revising the content out loud to your mirror, to pets, to food, etc., to your siblings. That always works. Multiple choice. Nessa has a great multiple choice quiz function, and there's a link on it to the slides. And because the PDHP paper hasn't changed in the past 20 minutes, it works really, really well. So feel free to access it, and it's really helpful. Finally, planning, writing your responses. Like sometimes writing responses a million times is exhausting. That can be exhausting. So you can, change it up by doing like essay plans and response plans and stuff. That is totally okay. But just don't substitute um, writing proper responses with like doing, um, writing proper responses with just doing, essay plans. It doesn't help. Okay. Okay, cool. So I think we're all right. I think that's the ambulance there. That's okay. Not the ambulance, the fire brigade. Whoops, fire brigade. It's hot. I think it's just like the boiler going off. It generally tends to do that. Let's have a look now because we have a lecture to finish. So let's have a look now. What must you do when the clock starts when it's the exam time? So this is really important. In the exam, read the questions, right? You've got 10 minutes reading time. That's plenty for PDHPE. That's plenty. So, read the questions. That's what the reading time is for. Start from the front and work your way through. You are allowed to plan, and I would recommend that you rather sit there and plan your response and you actually plan it all the way through, and give yourself that mental checklist to go through rather than like jump straight into writing and then realize that, oh, I don't know what I'm writing about. So really important that you do that. Use the space outside the border to plan. You can also do that because the space outside the border isn't scanned and sent through. It's only inside the border. So, and that's really important. If you're actually writing your proper response down and you're starting to write outside the border, it's not going to be scanned. And again, I say that from practice. So make sure that you write within the borders. But if you want to plan, you can write yourself a checklist outside the borders. And you can also ask for spare paper. They give you spare writing booklets, and you can use the back of the writing booklets if you're not sending it through with your paper, and you can plan on that. Allow enough time to yourself to actually go over it. Now that's really important. Your response is an indicator of your hard work. Use the time to check if it makes sense, if you've actually answered the question fully. That is really, really important. So I think that's it. Like, I probably never went back to check my multiple choice questions because I was the type of person who'd go back and cross it out, and then when I got the paper back, I'd realize that I'd crossed out the right ones. So I never did that. I really avoided that, but definitely go back and reread over your responses. And another really important thing is, for your electives, you only have to do 2 electives. You only do 2 questions worth 20 marks each. That's it. So make sure that you only do 2, and you actually write down what question you're doing, because the back questions are like, I think it continues on from 28 or 29, 30, 31, 32, so on. So you need to actually write down which one you are doing, because otherwise they won't know, right? Remember, the HSC markers, they don't know what elective you've studied. Your teachers might, so they might be able to say, oh, I know what they're talking about. But your HSC markers will not know what you have done. So you need to make sure you write down the actual question number that you are answering so that they know exactly what elective you've done. That's really important. I cannot stress that enough, because you don't want them, because if they don't know what you're doing, then they're not gonna give you the marks for it. They won't actually give you the marks for it if you have not specified what question it is. So make sure that you do that. Okay, oh, looks like the siren has stopped, which is good. I told you it's a boiler. Like, it's because it's hot, it tends to go off. And it just goes off too much in my building anyway. But it's all good. It's all good now. Like I said, we have a recording to do. We have a lecture to do, guys. So yeah, with this, remember, you wanna give yourself the best possible um chance that you can. Couple of other things. The night before the exam, don't spend time cramming stuff in. It does not help. It really does not help. I can tell you that because I tried that on my on the night of my chemistry exam, and then around 9 o'clock, I was like, yeah, no, it's not helping. It's not helping because it was stressing me out very much. So yeah, I left it. I just like no, not left it like do not study for it. No, I was prepared, but I was definitely a bit nervous. I was like trying to go through everything over and over again, but just was not working, so just left it. So that's why I'm saying do not cram the night before. It's not going to help. It's already done. You're not going to, get this extra band range by doing it the night before. So instead, I recommend um, go to bed on time. Go to bed on time. Do something else the night before. Watch a movie. Relax. Just de-stress. Okay, do something else. Watch a movie. Watch a show. Whatever you like to do. Just don't like spend time cramming stuff in. Does not work. Don't stay up late cramming stuff in. Don't stay up late watching a movie either. We don't want you going to bed at like 2 a.m. in the morning just because you're like, oh, he's like, I should have watched a movie tonight. So no, don't do that, please. Go to bed on time. I think 10 a.m., 10 p.m. 10 p.m.'s good. But it obviously depends on how much sleep everyone needs. But yeah, I would recommend don't study the night before. Just relax. Just let it be. It is gonna be what it's gonna be. So just let it be. Um, what else? Yeah, morning before, eat a good breakfast. It's 3 hours long. You will feel hungry like throughout. Okay, would you feel hungry? You'd feel hungry, but you wouldn't think about feeling hungry, or you might think about feeling hungry. PD exam, and I know PD exam I think time wise it's pretty good. Don't think there's like a need to rush at any point in a PD exam. Like it's time wise, it's good. Unlike for example, maths or bio or chem, like that's where you have to be a bit like rush a bit. Um, yeah, so that's that. I'm just thinking, like, little tips and tricks here and there that I'm trying to remember. Yeah, morning before, make sure you get in a good breakfast. Really important. Go to the bathroom before the exam. Don't want to go during, or if you're, or if you've like sailing through the exam and you do want to go for it. Another thing actually is gonna say is that what was I gonna say? Uh, I remember. Give me one sec. Um, I should have written this down. I had it for one of my other lectures, and I'm just remembering now. Another thing to do before the exam is to like if talking to people before exam stresses you out, don't do it. I mean, even generally, if it doesn't stresses you out, I would recommend against it. Even if you are the type of person who loves talking to other people, you're an extroverted person, you love it. Um, good on you. We need people. we need people like you. No, that's a great quality to have, first of all. But I would recommend that before the exam, I think personally, just relax and like de-stress. I do think that works well. Um, yeah, but if you ask, if you do want to go ahead and talk, absolutely. Who am I to stop you from talking? But I do think it's nice to just sort of do, because the thing is, it's not like talking to people is the bad thing. It's the fact that before the exam, everyone's going to be discussing how did you study, what did you study for, what didn't you study for, what did you forget. This is what I forgot, but this is what I remembered, and you're going to be like, oh, but that is what I forgot. I didn't remember to do that, but they did it. Oh my god, what am I supposed to do? Can you give me some last minute tips? It stresses you out. It actually stresses you out. Even if you think it wouldn't stress you out, it will. It really will. So just put yourself in the best mental space that you possibly can and just like let it all go. Just keep your focus on that exam. Again, I think that's something that worked for me. Like I would go in with the book, and I would just sit there and read away from people. And yeah, I wouldn't, yeah, like uh, no, I mean it was during the COVID time as well, so I was like definitely maintaining my distance. Um, no, but honestly, I was just yeah, no, it didn't help me. So I thought that, it's nice to just stay there, dude. And I know so many other people as well, people who love talking to other people, like really extroverted, but still before the exam, they like that quiet and peace because it definitely helps with your focus and your mental clarity. Yeah, you can listen to music as well. You can reread over your notes. That's okay too. I definitely did that for PDHPE just because there's so much stuff to remember, but not like cramming stuff, but just like, because I remember there was this one dot point that I would remember that I need to remember, but I would just always forget. Like, I wasn't sure what was happening. That is a question that came actually. So I think I got it, but it was that one dot point. But yeah, read over your notes. That always helps as well. Look, at the end of the day, you are so much more bigger than the HSC. You guys have achieved so much during this year. Um, and I hope you're going to take some skills into next year, tertiary education, if you're going ahead with that, or anything else that you do. The concentration, the ability to concentrate, the focus, maybe, stuff about yourself, how you are as a person, how you like to learn, how you like to study, what you like to study. And obviously the fun memories of year 12. Let's not forget that. So I hope you take all of that into next year with you and you enjoy that. I really do hope so. And look, like I said, you're much bigger than the HSC, so just keep working hard these next 2 weeks, and then remember, you have the whole summer after that. The summer's yours, the world's your oyster after that. So just, work hard now, and then you're gonna enjoy it so much. Alrighty, so you already had the microphone during the whole time. So if you have any questions, we'll still be here. I'll be still here for the next couple of minutes to answer any questions. So please ask any questions that you may have. But with that being said, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. I wish you all the very best. We all of us here at 8 Nodes, we wish you all the very best. Good luck. You're going to smash it out. Look after yourselves and take care, guys. Have a lovely break afterwards. Good luck for your HSC. You guys are going to smash it. See you guys.